This story begins with two girls who have a commitment not to forget each other even though one day fate will separate them both. The two girls named Tsubasa and Arisa. They are both twin sisters who for some reason have to separate residences. This is because their parents will soon divorce, so that one of them has to go along with the mother and the other has to go along with the father. Then one day, the two of them met somewhere because they realized that there would be a separation between the two of them, so that after some time they met before parting, they looked at each other and held hands, and at that time Arisa was heard saying something to Tsubasa, which contained a desire that if one day they really separated, they would not forget each other. Then after hearing what Arisa said, Tsubasa also told Arisa that she would never forget Arisa, because according to her, even though the two of them would live in different places, she would never forget Arisa, who was her twin sister. After hearing the things said by Tsubasa, Arisa then told Tsubasa that when later they would really be separated because their mother and father had to divorce and then separate residences, then she would always write a letter every day to send to Tsubasa, after saying that Arisa told Tsubasa that she would always keep all the secrets that had happened between the two of them, so that no one but the two of them knew. After that, the two of them separated and lived their respective lives. Then time went on until finally they both continued their studies at one of the high schools in their area. 3 years later, after the separation between them, Tsubasa was seen going to a cake shop, along with other female friends, after they all returned from high school, which is currently where they are studying. At the cake shop, Tsubasa looked very happy, especially when she saw a cake that was small but looked very cute to her. And on the other hand, the friend who came to the cake shop with her was heard ordering a cake called Mont Blanc. Then the female friend who came with Tsubasa to the cake shop who had ordered the cake also looked at Tsubasa and asked her about which cake Tsubasa currently wanted to enjoy. But Tsubasa just continued to smile and looked at the display case containing cakes, and then told her friend that she thought all the cakes in the cake shop looked so cute that she became very confused about which cake to buy. According to Tsubasa, the most enjoyable thing in her life was when she could have time to visit the cake shop after school with her friends. This is because Tsubasa is indeed a 15-year-old high school student who is very fond of visiting cake shops wherever she is. However, suddenly when Tsubasa and her friends were busy looking at the cakes in the cake shop, by enjoying the beauty of each cake shape, they immediately felt uncomfortable. This is because there was the presence of several men from other schools, totaling 3 people who also came to the same cake shop as the cake shop visited by Tsubasa and her friends. Furthermore, after seeing the presence of Tsubasa and also other female friends, the men approached them and asked them about whether they were high school students too or not. Then, after saying that the men from other high schools also said that they would immediately treat Tsubasa and other female friends to be able to enjoy the cake. Then, after that, the men from the other school said that if they had treated Tsubasa and her friends Mara, they had to be willing to take a walk together with 3 men who were students from the other high school. After getting the offer from the men, Tsubasa felt very not surprised because, so far as a girl, she was very often approached by male students at her school and other schools. Then after that it was seen that one of the men who was in front of Tsubasa had been drinking a milk box, which he then threw away right near Tsubasa. It also made Tsubasa immediately look at the milk box and then showed her annoyance at the behavior of the men by saying that the milk box should be destroyed, opened, then thrown into the box so that it would be recycled. This was said by Tsubasa by continuing to stomp on the man's milk box. Then after that, Tsubasa immediately picked up the milk box that he had destroyed, and Tsubasa immediately threw it into a trash box that had been provided by the owner of the cake shop they were visiting. After seeing Tsubasa, who stepped on the milk box belonging to the man's female friend who was with Tsubasa also looked very scared. When after stepping on the milk box, Tsubasa immediately beat the 3 men so that they were lying on the floor of the cake shop they were all visiting. After doing all that, then Tsubasa still happily continued what she had been doing in the cake shop, namely looking at some cakes that she thought looked very cute. Then, after a long time looking at the very cute cakes, Tsubasa then told the female friends who were with her that it seemed she would choose a strawberry cake to buy and enjoy at home. Tsubasa is indeed a girl and a woman who looks very graceful and beautiful, but many do not know that in fact, a Tsubasa has so much sense of justice and can instantly become stronger than other women that she is never afraid when a man bothers her. After Tsubasa beat up the man who had tried to bother her and also her schoolmates. Then the next day, when arriving at school, there was a male student who asked a student at the high school about having heard of a student named Tsubasa. Then the other student asked about what made her ask about Tsubasa, and then asked the man who asked about Tsubasa again about whether Tsubasa had fought again or made a problem so that it made her ask about Tsubasa. Then the man said that he heard a rumor that Tsubasa was a leader of all the punks in their high school area. Then not long after that, Tsubasa came together with other schoolmates, and immediately the two people who had been asking about Tsubasa were told that Tsubasa had now come to their high school. When Tsubasa was not looking at them because she was with her female friend, then someone who had been talking to the men then said that the woman she had just told was Tsubasa. Then, besides that, someone also told the men who had been asking about Tsubasa that a Tsubasa often got a nickname as a demon princess at Higashi High School. Then suddenly, after the quarrel occurred, it turned out that the three men who fought with Tsubasa at the cake shop where Tsubasa was buying cakes with her female friend looked into their high school in order to find out about who Tsubasa really was. And it turned out that the man who had been asking about Tsubasa was one of them. Tsubasa, who seemed to have just come to school with one of her female friends, was seen immediately turning her face away so as not to be seen by the men who had fought with her yesterday. But even though Tsubasa had tried not to be seen or see them, they were still seen by the men, so that it then made the men who were students from other high schools who had been waiting for their arrival immediately approached Tsubasa along with two other friends. After realizing that the three men would immediately approach her, Tsubasa, who was with one of her female friends, immediately tried to avoid. But even though they had tried to avoid, but still the three men managed to prevent their departure, so that they could immediately come face to face again with Tsubasa, and also one of the female friends who were with her. After successfully getting another CE to meet Tsubasa for the second time, then when the men who fought with her yesterday immediately told Tsubasa that they were very willing if the next time Tsubasa contacted them when they wanted to fight with someone else, and the sentence was immediately confirmed by one of the friends of the other men. The three of them then laughed while looking sharply at Tsubasa, who was right in front of them, while on the other hand, Tsubasa immediately turned her body away from the three men without saying anything to the three of them. Tsubasa then ran and cried in the corner of the room, while saying that she really wondered in her life about why, until now, only men wanted to be her friends, when in fact Tsubasa revealed that she really wanted to have a girlfriend who would invite her to follow her behavior that did things very cute, like an ordinary woman who could be gentle like they all did. Tsubasa then continued to cry in the corner of the room, until finally some friends who heard Tsubasa's crying immediately approached her and asked about what made Tsubasa cry in the corner of the room like this. Then, after a few moments of crying, Tsubasa then told the friends who approached her that she was currently crying in the corner of the room because she had completely forgotten the last time he was invited to go out with some of her female friends to waste time together. Then when Tsubasa was crying, because it had been a long time since he walked with her female friend, who used to always walk together with her, suddenly, Tsubasa heard a conversation between one of the students who went to the same school with her named Takeru. Tsubasa became very surprised because Takeru talked about someone while looking at a photo by saying that according to her, only an Arisa is a woman who can instantly become a very sweet woman, while for a Tsubasa to become a cute woman. Cute is a very impossible thing, let alone to become a beautiful woman like Arisa. Then after saying that while looking at a photo that was currently in his hand, Takeru also said that the photo of an Arisa's face was very adorable, and Takeru also told Tsubasa to immediately introduce Arisa to her. When she saw the photo of Arisa in his hand, Tsubasa, who was crying in the corner of the room, immediately stopped crying, then stood up and told Takeru to return the photo of Arisa, and reminded Takeru not to take it without asking permission from Tsubasa. Then, after saying this and successfully taking the photo of Arisa, which belongs to Tsubasa, then said to Takeru that Takeru should know if in fact Arisa already has a boyfriend who always accompanies her days. Takeru was very surprised when he heard what Tsubasa said, that it turned out that Arisa already had a boyfriend. Takeru then slightly did not believe what Tsubasa had just said about Arisa, because she knew very well that after their father and mother divorced, Tsubasa and Arisa had never met again to talk to each other. But after hearing what Takeru said, Tsubasa immediately told Takeru that even though she and her twin sister Arisa had been separated for a long time because their parents were divorced, she and Arisa always XG'd letters every day so that they could XGE stories and know the progress of the lives they had each lived. Tsubasa then told Takeru that actually in her life he had a younger sister who was her twin, and then told Takeru that Arisa, who he had been very fond of, was the twin sister of Tsubasa. But even though they were both twin brothers, but they had personalities and ways of life that were really very different. This is very visible in the way of living life between the two of them, as when at school even the two of them, even though they are twin sisters, but their behavior really looks different. This is because in her life at school, and Arisa is a very outstanding student. And besides that, Arisa also has very good grades in all subjects taken by her, so that it makes Arisa chosen as a representative in her class. Then at school, Arisa also has a lot of female and male friends who are always willing to be her friends every day when she is at school or outside the school environment. Then Tsubasa also told Takeru that he felt very proud because she had a twin sister who was a very cute girl and liked by many people around her like Arisa. All the things told by Tsubasa really made Takeru become silent and very attentive to all the things Tsubasa said about the life lived by Arisa, so that it also made Takeru even more amazed by the figure of Arisa, who she really wanted to meet. But after continuing to explain about everything that her twin sister named Arisa had, then suddenly Tsubasa became very surprised, because when she looked at the clock in her hand, it turned out that it was already showing that it was getting late. It also made Tsubasa shout a little in front of Takeru, and then said that she was very surprised, because the time turned out to be this late, and it automatically made Takeru ask Tsubasa about whether there was something that Tsubasa wanted to do, so that he became really very surprised when she saw that the time had started to get late. Then Tsubasa then told Takeru that actually, today she already had an appointment to meet someone she really cared about, namely Arisa. After 3 years, there had never been a meeting between the two of them. Hearing things said by Tsubasa that she would soon meet, Arisa made Takeru very happy to hear it, and immediately told Tsubasa to be willing to take her along with her to meet and see Arisa today. However, even though Tsubasa understood that Takeru really wanted to meet Arisa, for now Tsubasa told Takeru that she really couldn't invite Takeru to come with her to meet Arisa. She had to do it because for now, between her and Arisa was really very secretive about any communication or meetings that occurred between the two of them from anyone, especially their parents, who would never allow it to happen between Tsubasa and Arisa. After saying all that to Takeru, who stated that she could not invite her to meet with Arisa with her today, then Tsubasa excitedly immediately rushed to go to a place where the two of them had promised to meet today. During the trip, Tsubasa continued to read the letter that Arisa had sent her some time ago, where the letter read a letter she wrote to her twin brother, Tsubasa, whom she loved very much then after that. In the letter, Arisa asked Tsubasa about how she was doing after the two of them had never met for 3 years. After that, Arisa told Tsubasa that recently she felt really wanted to meet Tsubasa, so she had the intention to immediately invite Tsubasa to meet on Thursday, and she would wait for Tsubasa's arrival in the park, which is a place where they both very often spend time together to play when they are both young. The letter was written from Arisa, which then made Tsubasa immediately rush to the park in order to meet her twin brother, who had not seen her for a very long time after the separation that occurred between their parents. Then, after some time traveling quite a long way to the park, which is the place where they will meet, Tsubasa continued to think about her twin sister Arisa. After thinking about all these things, and continuing to step her feet towards the park. Finally, Tsubasa arrived at the location of the park where the two of them would meet, and began to sit in a chair that was already available in the park to wait for the arrival of her twin sister, Arisa. But don't know why. Suddenly, when she was sitting in the park to wait for Arisa, suddenly Tsubasa became thinking about whether after 3 years they hadn't seen each other, Arisa still recognized her or not. Then, after saying that to herself, Tsubasa suddenly became thinking about all these things really seriously, because at this time she felt that his appearance had geed greatly, and especially now Tsubasa felt that she looked even more geed from her previous self, because she had dyed her hair so that it was more colorful than since she last met Arisa. Then because of her hair and appearance like that, Tsubasa became even more insecure about meeting Arisa because she thought she looked like an idiot. And even her friends at school called her a demon queen at Higashi High School. After saying all these things to herself, then suddenly Tsubasa imagined if Arisa came and saw her current appearance, then immediately said that it seemed like Arisa did not have an older sister, and this is what is currently continuing to be in the mind of Tsubasa, who is very afraid if when she sees herself, Arisa immediately says something like that. Then after all these things continued to be thought of by Tsubasa, suddenly heard the voice of a girl calling her name as Tsubasa. Hearing that, Tsubasa immediately rushed to immediately look in the direction of the voice that called her, and after she looked at the girl, he was immediately made very happy because it turned out that the one who called her was her twin sister, Arisa. When she realized that Arisa still recognized herself as the twin sister of Arisa, it really made Tsubasa look very happy, and they immediately held hands and laughed together. Their meeting made Arisa say that she felt very happy because after 3 years of separation, she finally met Tsubasa, who made her very happy. Then, after saying the greeting of the meeting between the two of them, then Arisa smiled at Tsubasa, who was also smiling at her, and said that according to her, even though the two of them had been separated for 3 years, but Tsubasa was still the same as her attitude, which was very cheerful and full of enthusiasm in living her life. Then it also made Arisa tell Tsubasa that until now she thought nothing had ged from Tsubasa, who she really loved. Then it also made Tsubasa also told Arisa that according to her there was also nothing that had ged from Arisa, even though the two of them had been separated for a long time, and did not see each other. After saying that, Tsubasa then told her twin sister Arisa that during their separation he felt really missed Arisa, and they immediately hugged to release the longing they had been feeling. Then Tsubasa was invited by Arisa to go to the place where she had been living. After traveling for a while, the two of them finally arrived at a very large apartment, which is where Arisa always spends her time after completing her search for knowledge and carrying out her activities outside the apartment. After they arrived at the apartment, Arisa immediately invited Tsubasa to immediately enter her apartment. After entering Arisa's apartment, then Tsubasa immediately became very surprised because she saw how big and luxurious the apartment she was currently visiting. Then immediately she was full of surprise, immediately asked Arisa about whether the apartment they were currently visiting was Arisa's current residence or not. Then Arisa also told Arisa about the apartment they were currently visiting. Then Arisa also told Tsubasa that this apartment was indeed where she lived with her mother, but she then told Tsubasa that their mother had now started working again as a lawyer, and that made their mother very busy and rarely came home to the apartment which was their home. After saying that, then Arisa told Tsubasa that because of that for today, Tsubasa could really stay together with herself in this apartment. It also made Tsubasa very happy because tonight she could stay at Arisa's place so that they could play together and talk a lot about the life they both lived so far. It also made them both shake hands and laugh together, and then together say that they both really feel impatient to be able to spend time together in Arisa's house as long as their mother has not returned to the house. According to both of them, this is a very rare opportunity that can occur in their lives that have been separated because of the divorce that occurred between their parents, so that it caused Arisa to live with her mother and Tsubasa to live with her father. Then they immediately started to spend time together, starting with a meal together, which was held after Arisa finished cooking and preparing everything to welcome the arrival of Tsubasa, who he was looking forward to. Then, after all the food prepared by Arisa was served on the dining table, they both immediately sat down together to enjoy the food. When eating Arisa's cooking that she had served at the table, Tsubasa immediately told Arisa that he thought Arisa was really very good at cooking because the taste of the food he was currently enjoying was very good. Hearing the praise that Tsubasa threw at her made Arisa very happy, and they also enjoyed the dinner very much. After the two of them finished their respective meals, they then took a shower together, and after that, shed their clothes with the twin clothes they had worn together, and lay together on the bed in Arisa's room to rest. When the two of them were lying on the mattress in Arisa's bedroom, Arisa immediately faced Tsubasa and said that today she felt really very happy, because according to her, what happened between them today made them feel like they were back in the days when they lived together 3 years ago. Arisa then woke up from their bed and immediately went to a closet to show something she wanted to show Tsubasa. After successfully taking something that she showed Arisa, immediately showed it to Tsubasa for her to see, and then told her that all of that contained secret letters sent by Tsubasa to her for 3 years. And after saying about it, Arisa immediately asked Tsubasa about whether she also did the same thing to deviate all the letters sent by Arisa for 3 years to her. Hearing the question given by Arisa made Tsubasa immediately answer that of course he also kept all the letters given by Arisa to her. Then Tsubasa also said that she felt very happy that the two of them could continue to send letters to each other for 3 years, even though the two of them had been separated by circumstances. And then Tsubasa also said that she would also continue to keep the letters that Arisa had given her, because according to her, the letters were what made her still able to continue to connect with Arisa until finally they made an appointment to meet again. After that, while lying down and closing her eyes, Tsubasa also told Arisa with a smile that when she was reading the letter given by Arisa instantly, she could feel the happiness that was being felt by Arisa at that time. Then Tsubasa also said she felt even happier when she read in a letter containing a story from Arisa, which told that Arisa was very happy when hanging out with friends at school. In addition, Tsubasa-sab also told Arisa that she also felt very happy when she read in the letter sent by Arisa, which stated that Arisa had managed to get 100 points in the exam she was doing. It also made Tsubasa feel that the life lived by Arisa was very different from the life she had been living, because at school, he did not have a Peterus continuously always fighting with almost all friends' friends who were at school. After saying all these things to Arisa, then Tsubasa immediately told Arisa that all this time he felt very jealous of all the things that Arisa had lived in his life. It also made Arisa, who heard it, become a little saddened by the things said by Tsubasa, and immediately looked at Tsubasa, who seemed to always try to smile, even though the life lived by Tsubasa was not like the life that had been lived by her. Furthermore, after hearing that it turned out that all this time her twin brother Tsubasa really wanted to be able to live the life she had lived all this time, finally it made Arisa immediately say something that made Tsubasa very surprised. The thing said by Arisa turned out to be an offer that he gave to Tsubasa to try to be herself as Tsubasa had always wanted. Then, after hearing that, Tsubasa became very confused and surprised when she heard that Arisa invited her to live her days as an Arisa. And then that made Tsubasa then ask Arisa about how he could feel like an Arisa. Hearing what Tsubasa asked, Arisa explained to Tsubasa that what she meant was that Tsubasa became her for 1 day and entered the school where Arisa went to school, so that according to Arisa, Tsubasa would be able to feel what it would be like if she lived the days of being an Arisa like he had always wanted. After explaining everything about what she meant by that, Arisa also told Tsubasa that it seemed like it would be very fun for them to do. Then the next day, after they woke up from their long sleep, Arisa was very happy and immediately rushed to carry out what she had discussed with her twin, Tsubasa, last night. Seeing Tsubasa, who was also awake, also made Arisa to immediately prepare ready to try for the first time to live the day as an Arisa. It also immediately made Arisa rush to invite Tsubasa to immediately prepare ready to carry out his activities and head to school today. After that, Arisa told Tsubasa that no matter what the circumstances, they were both twins, so she was very sure that no one would realize that the one who entered her school today was Tsubasa. Besides that, Arisa also told Tsubasa that she knew that today was her school's birthday, and that made Arisa told Tsubasa that it meant she didn't need to go to school today and could focus on living her days in Arisa's school. Then, after saying all the things that she meant, Arisa then told Tsubasa that she had to get ready to go to the school that Arisa was attending today. That also made Arisa immediately pulled Tsubasa's hand to invite her to immediately make up herself so that his appearance could resemble Arisa. It also made Tsubasa very surprised because Arisa suddenly immediately pulled her hand and then told her to immediately draw her eyebrows, then wear a wig, and then wear Arisa's school uniform, so that when she came to school today, her twin sister Tsubasa could really look like her, so that it would not arouse the suspicion of her classmates when Tsubasa entered her class today. Sometime later, Arisa finally finished making Tsubasa to look like her, and after getting the appearance of Tsubasa to be like her, then Arisa invited Tsubasa to immediately go to a room with a large glass, and then told Tsubasa to immediately see herself and all the appearances she had prepared today. When she saw herself at this time in the glass, then Tsubasa became even more surprised, because she felt that at this time she really looked like an Arisa hearing. What Tsubasa said also made Arisa very happy, because she felt that this time she had really succeeded in making Tsubasa look exactly like her, with a GE and hair color and makeup that was made like her. Then Arisa felt that with this style of appearance, then Tsubasa would never be caught by anyone if it was not actually Arisa who came to school today. Tsubasa also said that it sounded very interesting to be an Arisa for a day. Then after that, Arisa also invited Tsubasa to open a book containing photos and also the names of his friends at school, because he thought that from now on, Tsubasa should really know the names and faces of all the students in his class. Then when pointing to one of the faces of a student in her class, Arisa also told Tsubasa that the girl was named Mariko. But before Arisa told her the whole story about friends in her class, suddenly Tsubasa immediately told Arisa that she had almost known all the names of friends in her class after reading all the letters that Arisa had sent her. The next day, Tsubasa immediately got up and got ready to go to school as an Arisa and headed to Arisa's school. Then while walking and finally right in front of the school, Tsubasa told herself that maybe, with the things he was doing right now, he would be able to get to know more about Arisa and how life was lived by Arisa while at school. Then, after arriving at Arisa's school, Tsubasa immediately rushed to walk to the class where Arisa studied, namely Class 2B at Haritsubaki Private High School. When entering the class, Tsubasa immediately realized and told herself that from now on he would always pay attention to the way she spoke so that it sounded the same as the way Arisa spoke when at school with his friends. But when Tsubasa had just stepped her feet to enter Arisa's class, suddenly there was one of the students in the class who immediately said good morning to her and immediately embraced her with joy and immediately called her Arisa. The thing that the woman did finally made Tsubasa immediately look at her and realized that a student who was a fluffy girl who was currently in front of her must be Arisa's close friend named Tagaki Mariko. Then, after Tagaki Mariko greeted her and embraced her after that, Tsubasa also tried to greet Tagaki Mariko again by asking about how she was doing today. But before answering the question asked by Tsubasa Tagali, Mariko immediately looked at Tsubasa, who was currently acting as if she was an Arisa, then told Tsubasa that she found a very nice object yesterday when she was walking in a shopping center. Then, after saying that to Tsubasa, then Tagaki Mariko immediately showed an object which was a cell phone hanger in the form of a small doll hanging on the end. After Tagaki Mariko showed it to Tsubasa, she immediately said that when buying the object she not only bought one for her, but also bought another one for Arisa. So after listening to what Tagaki Mariko had said, Tsubasa immediately showed an attitude that looked very happy because she got a cell phone hanger, which she thought was really very cute. Then, after knowing that the object was for her, Tsubasa immediately showed a slightly surprised but very happy attitude, and then asked about whether it could be used immediately with her right now. Hearing that right, Tagaki Mariko immediately told Tsubasa that, of course, he could use it and immediately put the cell phone hanger on their respective cell phones so that their two cell phones looked paired because they used the same cell phone hanger. After the cell phone hanger was successfully installed on her cell phone and paired with Tagaki Mariko's, then Tsubasa continued to look at the foundation and immediately shed tears because she felt very moved, because according to her today was the first time she felt very happy because she bought an object in the form of a cell phone hanger that paired with another woman who was currently her close friend while she was living life as an Arisa. Then, after giving a cell phone hanger to Tsubasa, who is currently an Arisa, Suddenly, Mariko immediately said a sentence which was an invitation to Tsubasa to come with her to go together to the restroom at their school. Hearing the things said by Mariko also made Tsubasa immediately remember about during middle school. She had very often told his other female friends that he wanted to experience a situation where she could go together with other female friends to the restroom, but none of them were willing to accompany her to go to the restroom. So that it also made Tsubasa remember that during middle school, he had very often told his female friends that he wanted to experience a situation where she could go together with other female friends to the restroom, but none of them were willing to accompany her to the restroom, so that it also makes Tsubasa feel really very happy, because now, when she becomes an Arisa and attends Arisa school, she meets Mariko, who is a close friend of Arisa, who is currently inviting her to realize her dreams so far, namely going to the bathroom together with a female friend, and it really makes Tsubasa feel very happy. It immediately made Tsubasa with a full sense of happiness, immediately pulled Mariko's hand to go together to the restroom in their school. After her hand was pulled by Tsubasa, it made Mariko feel a little surprised, but became happy, because now she saw her close friend feeling very happy. Tsubasa then immediately went to the restroom at Arisa's school, along with Arisa's close friend, Mariko. But when they finished from the restroom suddenly when they were about to go out first, Mariko told Arisa that not far from the restroom, a Midori-kun was seen, and it immediately made Mariko immediately show it to Tsubasa to immediately see the existence of Midori-kun. Hearing what Mariko said also made Tsubasa immediately feel curious, and saw Midori-kun, who was not far from where they were standing at the moment. And what he saw made Tsubasa realize that it turned out that a man-kun was Midori-kun, who had always been told by Arisa to Tsubasa through letters sent by her saying that she had been dating a man named Midori recently. After seeing firsthand a man named Yamashita Midori, who is the boyfriend of Arisa automatically, it immediately makes Tsubasa even more jealous of the life lived by Arisa where she has a very cool boyfriend like Midori-kun. It then made Tsubasa become very questioning in his heart about how Arisa managed to get a boyfriend like Midori-kun. Then, not long after seeing Arisa's presence nearby, Midori-kun then immediately rushed to approach Arisa, who was walking with her close friend, Mariko, who was always with her when in the school environment. After approaching Arisa then, Midori-kun also asked Arisa about whether she had seen when Midori-kun shot on the field or not, and then after that, Midori-kun also said that while he was playing, he always thought that the target was Arisa's heart, so that he could easily immediately succeed in making each shot well. Then after approaching Arisa and saying all those things, then Midori-kun also hurried away to continue his activities in the school environment, while smiling at Arisa and saying that he would be very waiting for the next letters that Arisa would give her. When he met Midori-kun and saw his face from a very close distance when Midori-kun approached her, it made Tsubasa-san feel very happy inside because he thought Midori-kun, who was Arisa's boyfriend, was a very cool man. Then Tsubasa suddenly thought about the faces of the male students in his school and compared them with Midori-kun's face, so that it made Tsubasa really realize that it turned out that in the high school where he went to school, he thought there was no cool male species like Midori-kun. Then after finishing meeting Midori-kun, who is the girlfriend of Arisa, suddenly there was a male student who jumped from the top floor of their school then fell on Tsubasa-san's body, so that it immediately made Tsubasa-san feel very surprised, and then asked about what exactly the man was doing. It then made the man, after realizing that he had hit the body of an Arisa, immediately asked about whether Arisa was injured by falling or not. But it had made Tsubasa feel really very upset. But she understood that the man actually did not know that he would hit a woman who was downstairs, so that it also made Tsubasa hold herself so as not to show his anger to the man, especially because he was currently playing a gentle girl like Arisa. Finally, despite feeling very annoyed with the man, Tsubasa finally told the man that she felt that no one was hurt from her, and after hearing what she said, the man told Tsubasa that if she was not hurt, then it was very good according to her because if she would get into trouble if she got the class president hurt. While in her heart, Tsubasa said that if she was not hurt then it was very good according to her, because if she would get into trouble if she got the class president hurt, While in his heart, Tsubasa actually became very questioning about who exactly the man Theami, who did not even say the slightest word of apology to Tsubasa after the man made her fall, but not the slightest sorry eye was uttered by the man. Not long after that, the man immediately left Tsubasa, who then approached Tagaki Mariko. Tagaki Mariko, who saw all these events, then said that in her opinion, Arisa was a very great girl, because now finally Manabe-kun began to come again to the high school where they all studied. When she heard that Tsubasa became a little confused, before she never heard stories from Arisa about a student at her school named Manabe-kun, so that it also made Tsubasa become silent, because she didn't know what to say about a man named Manabe-kun that Tagaki Mariko had just told her. But even though Tsubasa felt very confused and very curious about who exactly the man Lami was, he still acted as if he knew the man very well so that Tagaki Mariko did not become suspicious that she was not actually Arisa Will. But then Tsubasa got a little answer about who exactly the man Manabe-kun was after Tagaki Mariko told her that all this time, Manabe-kun was one of the students who rarely came to school. But according to her, after Arisa sincerely tried to talk to her nicely so that Manabe-kun was willing to come to school finally. Now Manabe-kun began to be willing to come again to high school to study together with other friends. In addition to saying that to Tsubasa, then Tagaki Mariko also said that while in the school environment the man only wanted to talk to one person, Arisa, so that it also made Tagaki Mariko tell Tsubasa that according to her all this time the man really liked Arisa. After hearing all the things told by Tagaki Mariko, Tsubasa also felt very happy because she thought her sister was a very good angel to friends, and even felt very proud when she heard that it turned out that Arisa also helped in overcoming problematic students at her school. Then, in addition, when in class Arisa was so eagerly awaited by friends in her class who waited for her to invite her to lunch and call her as class president, and ask about math assignments to Arisa, so that it also made Tsubasa feel that friends in Arisa's class naturally always wanted to be by Arisa's side. Moreover, when Tsubasa found out that Arisa had a very good girlfriend named Midori-kun, so with all the things she knew from Arisa's life, it immediately made Tsubasa feel that the life that Arisa had been living was really very dazzling. Then Tsubasa was walking down the street to her class, but suddenly someone gave her a letter, which read that the letter was written to Arisa. After getting the letter, Tsubasa immediately put the letter in his pocket to give it to Arisa when they met after school later, but it also made Tsubasa feel a little surprised by the male students in his school, because they continued to try to approach Arisa by sending love letters from them, even though they all knew that Arisa already had a boyfriend at the school. After going through the activities and studying at Arisa's school for the first time, then the school dismissal time arrived, and Arasan immediately rushed to walk out of the school area to the house where Arisa lived, because Tsubasa was eager to tell Arisa everything about his thrilling experience that she had successfully completed. Then when Tsubasa was walking to return to Arisa's house from the school window, several people watched Tsubasa's every step from a distance and looked very scary, but it was not at all noticed by Tsubasa, who continued his journey to head back to Arisa's house. Then, after arriving at Arisa's house, then Tsubasa was immediately warmly welcomed by Arisa, who seemed to have been waiting for Tsubasa to return to her house for a long time. Arisa immediately asked Tsubasa about whether she was very tired or not after living her days as an Arisa. Then it was immediately answered by Tsubasa, who told Arisa that as long as she lived his days at the middle school where Arisa went to school, she felt that her class was very crowded and her female friends were so sweet. In addition, Tsubasa also told Arisa that he thought the teachers at the school were also very good, and moreover, Tsubasa also told Arisa that at the school there was a man who she thought was very cool. Then after telling all the things she had felt while attending Arisa's middle school, then Tsubasa also told Arisa that he thought his days at school were really a very interesting day. Hearing this, Arisa just lowered her face, while on the other hand, Tsubasa continued to tell the life she lived when she became herself. While on the other hand, Tsubasa continued to compare between the life he lived as a Tsubasa and the life he lived when she became Arisa, which she thought was really very different. This is because Tsubasa realized that when she was in high school, She was one of the students who was always called to the teacher's room every time she finished fighting with other students in her school, so that it made her even more jealous of the life lived by Arisa, which she thought was very fun. After finishing telling all that to Arisa instantly, Tsubasa remembered that there was something he wanted to give to Arisa, which was a letter she found in Arisa's locker when she was at school. Tsubasa immediately rushed to get the letter he put in his bag. But when she was about to give the letter to Arisa, he became a little surprised when he saw Arisa, who suddenly sat on the window of her room. Then, after sitting on the window with a very dim-looking gaze, Arisa also said that in her opinion the life lived by Tsubasa was much happier when compared to the life she had lived so far. Then, after saying that, Arisa suddenly said to Tsubasa that in her opinion all this time, Tsubasa must have never experienced the feeling of disappearing from this world as he had always experienced. This also made Tsubasa very surprised and confused after hearing everything Arisa said, and the look on her face, which then turned into someone who didn't want to continue her life. Then Tsubasa immediately asked Arisa about what was really going on with her, so that she suddenly said all these things, even though she thought Arisa's life was perfect because she was very sweet and smart, and besides that, at school Arisa also had a very good boyfriend. Then Tsubasa also felt that when the school Arisa was the most popular student when compared to other students, and everyone in the middle school, according to her, really liked Arisa, so that made her feel that Arisa had no reason to feel unhappy in the life he lived. It was then responded by Arisa with a very sad face, and then said that according to Tsubasa, it was possible that the life lived by Arisa was really very interesting to live. But then Arisa told Tsubasa that actually Tsubasa could say all those things because Tsubasa didn't really know them all. So Tsubasa didn't know anything about the secrets that happened between them all, and also the secrets of Arisa when in the school environment. Then, after saying all those things about her and her friends at school, who turned out to have a secret that she didn't tell Tsubasa, then it made Tsubasa really feel curious about it. However, before Tsubasa had time to ask further about it to Arisa, suddenly Arisa looked even more sad and dropped the letter she was holding. After which Arisa apologized to Tsubasa and immediately threw herself out the window on the top floor of her apartment. Then Tsubasa immediately became really very surprised when she saw Arisa suddenly make herself fall out of the window of her apartment to the lower floor. Tsubasa also became very panicked, but he could no longer do anything to prevent Arisa's fall from the window. Then it also made Tsubasa blamed herself, who had only known that Arisa was a girl who was class president at school and was very smart, so that she became very liked by many friends at school. But even so, at this time, Tsubasa became very aware that it turned out that she did not know fully about what really happened to the life lived by Arisa, so that the tragedy where she finally dropped herself from the window happened right in front of Tsubasa. Chapter 2. Then Tsubasa, who could no longer hold Arisa from falling downstairs, then immediately rushed to the body of Arisa, who had fallen on the bottom floor of her apartment, after seeing the condition of Arisa, who was completely unconscious. Then, Tsubasa immediately rushed to call an ambulance, in order to take Arisa to the nearest hospital in the same area as the apartment where Arisa lived, so that Arisa could immediately get a first aid for the tragedy. Arriving at the hospital, Arisa was immediately examined by a doctor at the hospital, and then the hospital doctor said that perhaps a miracle had happened to Arisa, so that she did not have any injuries anywhere, and there was not the slightest damage to her brain, even though she had fallen from the third floor of her apartment. Seeing the condition that Arisa was currently experiencing made Tsubasa regret all the things that had happened because she had just felt reunited with her twin sister, who had been separated from her for 3 years, and Tsubasa told herself that she really wanted to enjoy the next days together with Arisa. Besides that, Tsubasa also felt that she really wanted to be able to go to school together with Arisa, but now his hopes were increasingly becoming an impossibility, because even after a week had passed, Arisa had not woken up from sleep. That finally made Tsubasa also ask the doctor about whether Arisa would be able to wake up again in a healthy state or not. Then, hearing the question asked by Tsubasa, the doctor immediately explained to Tsubasa that actually at this time, Arisa could wake up from sleep, but for some reason Arisa kept trying to keep herself asleep and not wake up from sleep. Hearing what the doctor said made Tsubasa then asked about what the doctor thought was the thing that caused Arisa to keep trying not to wake up from sleep. Then the doctor told Tsubasa that according to her, maybe the thing that caused Arisa to do that was because currently Arisa was very mentally shaken. But even though the doctor said that the reason for Arisa's unwillingness to wake up from her sleep was only because she was mentally shaken, it didn't just make Tsubasa believe the reason the doctor said so. Finally, Tsubasa called several police officers to investigate Haritsubaki High School, especially in Class 2B, which was the class where Arisa studied every day. Then after calling the police, Tsubasa-san immediately told the police officers with emotion that he thought it was possible that the students at the middle school had beaten Arisa while at school, so that it finally caused Arisa to become very depressed and could not stand it anymore and finally did something that made her unconscious, so that she no longer needed to go to school to meet them all. After listening to the allegations expressed by Tsubasa, the police then asked Tsubasa whether before this incident there was someone who had told her that Arisa, while at school, had been bullied by her schoolmates, or whether Tsubasa had strong evidence to prove that Arisa was really bullied while at the school. Then, after hearing the question from the policeman, Tsubasa-san immediately thought about all that and said that he had never heard of it, but with more emotion. Then Tsubasa immediately pulled the policeman's shirt collar and said that she never lied, that what she thought might have happened because according to the doctor, there had been a shock to Arisa's mentality. When she saw Tsubasa looking very emotional with a policeman in front of her, suddenly, Takeru came over to her and immediately hugged Tsubasa and said that Tsubasa should remain calm in dealing with all the problems that were happening at this time. Takeru then explained that he came to approach Tsubasa because he felt that Tsubasa had not entered their high school for several days, and finally Takeru came to Tsubasa's house and met with her father, who told him everything that was happening to Tsubasa. Takeru then asked Tsubasa about whether it was true what her father said, that until now their mother had not contacted them at all. Then Tsubasa told Takeru that it was true because their mother was still busy working abroad. Then, while saying that Tsubasa also looked at the longest photo of Arisa on a table in her apartment, and then thought that maybe all this time Arisa always felt lonely because her mother never accompanied her. So she was just alone at home, and hearing that made Takeru also look at Arisa's photo. Then Tsubasa also looked at the very large number of letters that had been neatly stored, so that it made Takeru, who was with her, also asked Tsubasa about what letters he was looking at. Then Tsubasa immediately explained to Takeru that the letters she was currently looking at were a collection of letters he received from Arisa for 3 years since they lived in different places because their father and mother separated. Then after saying that Tsubasa also showed a very sad face while looking at the letters, and told Takeru that for 3 years he really looked forward to the letters sent by Arisa. Then slowly Tsubasa began to read some of the letters sent to her by Arisa, which contained a story that one day Arisa once told her that she went home from school to Mariko's house to see her dog. But when Mariko's dog barked at Arisa, it immediately made her very afraid to visit Mariko's house. Then when Arisa was feeling very scared because she saw Mariko's dog barking, it immediately made Arisa remember when she was a child Tsubasa always tried to help her when she was bothered by the dogs around her. After that, Arisa sent a letter to her which contained a question about how Tsubasa was doing, and then told her that her class was very busy that day, and Arisa said that he had been elected as a class president this semester, so that it also made Arisa want to always try to be a good class president for his friends. Then, after conveying all of that through letters sent by her next, Arisa sent a letter to Tsubasa, which contained a story about her being shot that day by Midori-kun, who was a man who had previously been told by her to Tsubasa that she really liked that man for a long time, so that when finally Midori-kun confessed his feeling to her, really made Arisa become very disbelieving about it. All the letters sent by Arisa and all the stories that Arisa told made Tsubasa feel that the life lived by Arisa was just like what she described in every story, so that it also made Tsubasa feel that all this time Arisa was very happy in her life. But it turned out that all this time Tsubasa never knew what was going on in the life lived by Arisa. It also made Tsubasa feel that all this time he did not realize that it turned out that Arisa was hiding something from her, and Tsubasa then felt that he had become a very disappointing brother for her twin sister Arisa. This is because currently Tsubasa feels that she has never protected his sister, so maybe Arisa needs protection from her. But after listening to all the things said by Tsubasa made Takeru tell about his secret to Tsubasa by saying that all this time he had also kept a porn book that he put in the room without his parents knowing. Then besides, that Takeru also told Tsubasa never knew about how old his parents were, and even he didn't know about what grade his brother was currently in, even though they all lived together. So thus, according to Takeru, it is only natural that even though they are a family, but do not know each other's secrets in their respective lives, so if all this time Tsubasa did not know about the secrets in Arisa's life, then it is something very natural and not solely her fault. Then Tsubasa also told Takeru that all this time he thought Takeru was just a male student who was cool, but it turned out that he could treat Tsubasa this well. After saying that Tsubasa immediately asked Takeru not to tell about all the things he knew about what happened between her and her twin sister Arisa, and it was immediately responded to by Takeru, who said that he would keep all these things a secret from friends who were in their middle school. Then, after some time talking together with Takeru to calm herself down, then Tsubasa returned to Arisa, who was currently lying weak in a room in the hospital where she was treated. Then when Tsubasa looked at Arisa's face, he also remembered the words said by Arisa about her not knowing the secret between Arisa and also friends who were in the high school where she went to school. It also made Tsubasa immediately think that maybe right now Arisa really needed his help to solve the problems in his life, so that Tsubasa also told herself that for now, she could not be spoiled in dealing with this situation to save Arisa. After saying that, Tsubasa immediately grasped tightly a letter in his hand, where the letter contained an inscription stating that Arisa was a traitor. Therefore, from now on, Tsubasa became very determined that he must really try to help Arisa. Then after that, Tsubasa returned to her father's house and said good morning to her father, who was seen cooking in the kitchen of their house. Her father, who saw Tsubasa's appearance that looked like Arisa, immediately showed a very surprised look. But when she saw her father show such an attitude, Tsubasa immediately told her father that she thought instead of waiting for Arisa, who had not woken up from sleep and did nothing to save Arisa, then he thought for now it would be better if he found out many things about the life lived by Arisa. After saying that, Tsubasa then told her father to help her immediately by telling her what had actually happened in Arisa's life that she didn't know. Then, because her father did not give any answers to Tsubasa, finally the next day, Tsubasa immediately rushed to return to school at Haretsubaki Middle School 2nd grade B and still acted as if he was an Arisa, because by doing so, she hoped to find out about what secrets had actually happened between them all. Then, on the way to class, Tsubasa was determined to be able to prove whether they had all ganged up on or insulted Arisa or not. And with a sense of anger, finally Tsubasa's footsteps led her to arrive at Class 2B, which was the place where Arisa studied while at Haretsubaki High School. However, after Tsubasa arrived at the class, he suddenly became very surprised because her classmates actually looked forward to Arisa's presence at their school, so they gave a small surprise to welcome Arisa today. After which several people also said a few sentences that showed their concern for Arisa. On the other hand, Mariko, who is Arisa's close friend, then said that she was very worried about Arisa's condition after she heard that yesterday Arisa had an accident and did not reply to her texts. But Mariko then said that suddenly one of her classmates saw Arisa's arrival at the middle school, so that it immediately made them hurriedly prepare a surprise to welcome Arisa. Then when Tsubasa looked at the blackboard in the classroom, they saw a writing that contained a welcome to Arisa. And after that, Mariko also told Tsubasa that during Arisa did not come to school, Midori always wrote a note to Arisa. After the note was given by Mariko to Tsubasa, he immediately became thinking about whether Arisa's boyfriend could be trusted or not, and then imagined that the note contained sentences that were not good for Arisa. But after that, when Tsubasa opened, it turned out that there was nothing suspicious about the note, because it only contained an expression given by Midori-kun to Arisa about her feelings of longing for Arisa. Then, after reading the letter, Mariko immediately hugged Tsubasa and said that she also really missed Arisa. Then one of the male friends in their class offered to Tsubasa to bring a pile of notes from Midori-kun. After seeing all the attitudes shown by friends in Arisa's class, it made Tsubasa feel that this class was still the same when welcoming Arisa, so Tsubasa also told herself that Class 2B was a very polite and friendly class towards Arisa. Then it made Tsubasa become very confused about where the secret lies between them all. Then after welcoming the arrival of Arisa, suddenly Mariko told Tsubasa that she was very happy, because soon the time she was waiting for has arrived. Then told Tsubasa about surely Arisa is also looking forward to this. But when Mariko said that to her, Tsubasa immediately showed a very confused look, and then asked about what would happen at this time. Then after hearing what Tsubasa said, made Mariko explain to Tsubasa that because it was Friday, the 4th hour would soon arrive, and that hour was the time they were most waiting for. Tsubasa continued to show her confused attitude, so that their classmates finally looked directly at Uehata. It immediately made Tsubasa immediately say that it seemed that due to an accident that had just happened to her, there were some memories that were lost, so that she did not remember what would happen in the 4th hour on Friday in their class. After hearing what Tsubasa had just said, her classmates immediately together reminded Tsubasa about the 4th hour that was about to arrive, and immediately Mariko and other friends closed the doors and windows of their class, after which they all immediately held their cell phones, and with very flat faces, said that the thing they were going to do in this 4th hour would soon begin. Instantly, Tsubasa became very confused by the attitude of her classmates, who immediately sat quietly in class, so that it made Tsubasa become a little scared and wondered about what was going on at the moment. Then heard the sound of them all together saying the word king, so that it made Arisa become even more questioning about what king time was meant by all the friends in his class. Then they all entered an application called king, and suddenly a voice was heard saying that today one request would soon be granted that was written by several people among them. Then all the friends in Arisa's class immediately typed all their wishes and invited Tsubasa to immediately write his wish, because there were only 10 seconds left. After they all wrote down their wishes, the voice was heard again saying that the wish that would be granted by her today was please eliminate Todoroki-sensei. Then after the wish that was granted was read out, some people seemed to be very upset and shouted because their wishes were never granted. But regarding Todoroki-sensei, there were several students who said that the teacher was indeed very annoying. Hearing all the things they were talking about made Tsubasa very confused and thought about who Todoroki-sensei meant by all of them. Then they said that king time was up and everyone in Arisa's class returned to normal behavior and talked to each other. Someone was heard saying that even though it was study time alone, they had to keep studying, and then the person invited other friends to compare their English answers with each other. After that, suddenly Midori-kun approached Tsubasa-san and said that it was a shame that this time his wish with Arisa was not granted. This immediately made Tsubasa realize that it turned out that King Time was just a game on a cell phone made by 2nd grade B children who made one of the wishes to be chosen like a lucky lottery, and this time the chosen wish was to eliminate Todoroki-sensei. After knowing all that, then Tsubasa felt that all of that had nothing to do with Arisa, while previously Tsubasa thought that when she came back to 2nd grade B, then she would soon be able to discover the secret that Arisa was referring to. Furthermore, when Tsubasa was thinking about all these things, Mariko suddenly hugged her from behind and invited her to group with Mariko to form a basketball team at the sports hour, which would soon begin. But before Tsubasa answered Mariko's words, suddenly the voice of someone who was their sports teacher named Todoroki-sensei greeted the students, and then shouted and told the students to immediately gather in the building where they used to do sports. Seeing the arrival of Todoroki-sensei, who suddenly entered the room where the students GE'd into sports clothes, made the students immediately rippled and reminded Todoroki-sensei not to enter arbitrarily when they were all Jing clothes. It immediately made some students say that Todoroki-sensei was a very pornographic teacher, and after listening to the shouts of the students, then Todoroki-sensei immediately told the students the word sorry, because he had entered the room, because he thought that the students had finished Jing their clothes. Then the students immediately told Todoroki-sensei to immediately leave the room, and then it immediately made Todoroki-sensei immediately leave the room. Then after finishing their clothes, Todoroki-sensei began teaching basketball lessons to the students. When Todoroki-sensei was teaching the students in the second class B after Tsubasa noticed it often, Todoroki-sensei harassed the students by holding their bodies while acting as if he was teaching a technique to be able to play basketball in a good and correct way. It also made Tsubasa very upset to see all that. Then when Todoroki-sensei began to touch her, Tsubasa immediately became very angry and immediately pushed her while saying if Todoroki-sensei should not be careless in holding girls in his class or not. Tsubasa said that he would immediately break Todoroki-sensei's teeth. Then seeing Tsubasa, who looked really angry at Todoroki-sensei, also made her friends stop it. But Tsubasa immediately asked his female friends about why teachers like Todoroki-sensei still survive to teach at their high school, and why not just get fired. Then Mariko, who is a close friend of Arisa, immediately told Tsubasa to leave all these matters to their king, and hearing that made Tsubasa immediately say about isn't king time just an ordinary game. Then with a very serious face, Mariko also told Tsubasa that king time was not just a game because one day the king would suddenly appear and grant all their wishes because the words said by the king were absolute. Then after saying all that, Mariko also told Tsubasa that what they had meant as king was their god. Not long after that, suddenly a voice was heard calling Todoroki's name, so that the call was then immediately responded to by Todoroki, who then asked about who called his name and what made the voice come and call her name. Then after that, the students returned to class because the lesson was over and immediately returned to their respective homes. Arriving at home, Tsubasa immediately met Takeru, who was difficult to wait for her arrival. Then to Takeru, Tsubasa said that in Arisa's class, there was a game called King Time, where all students in the class were asked to immediately write down their wishes at that hour, and after that, one of the wishes would be immediately granted by the king. Hearing that right, Takeru was very surprised because he had just heard of such a game, so that it made Takeru ask Tsubasa about whether it was a game played by elementary school children or not. Then Tsubasa immediately told Takeru that the game was played by students in high school, and more precisely, in Arisa's class. It really made Tsubasa become very clueless about what was in the minds of the smart children in the class. Then all these events made Tsubasa feel that it seemed that he could not do anything to save Arisa, because according to Tsubasa, he felt that there was nothing suspicious in the class, and there were no signs that there had been a beating from them to Arisa, because even they all seemed to love Arisa. But after hearing all the stories revealed by Tsubasa-san, Takeru thought that even though the class looked normal, he still felt suspicious of someone Tsubasa-san had told her about a male student named Manabe. Then hearing the things said by Takeru made Tsubasa realize about Manabe, who she also suspected, because it seemed that something had happened between Manabe and Arisa, but the king time made Tsubasa forget about all that. Then Tsubasa also told Takeru that he would start investigating Manabe tomorrow when he returned to school at Arisa's school. The next day after arriving at school, Tsubasa wanted to start talking to Manabe, but when she would try to approach Manabe at that time, she saw that Manabe was sleeping in class. But even though he already had the intention to invite Manabe to talk, but Tsubasa had a little fear if when she invited Manabe to talk, and then at that time Manabe realized that he was not Arisa. Then the friends in the class seemed to start complaining because it was Todoroki-sensei's class time. But suddenly there was another teacher who told the students in class 2B that today they all had to study alone. The teacher then explained that since yesterday, the school could not contact Todoroki-sensei, and no one had seen her because he was never seen in the teacher's room again. Then the teacher told the students that he felt that Todoroki had just disappeared, and then told the students in class 2B to concentrate on learning in class, even though they had to study alone this time without Todoroki-sensei. After the teacher finished talking about it, the students immediately shouted with happiness and said that they all had to immediately thank the king because the king had granted the request of all of them. After saying all that, then suddenly the light in the classroom became dim, and suddenly there was snow outside the window. Then the students in the class immediately happily sang a farewell song for Todoroki-sensei's departure. Seeing all the things that had happened, made Tsubasa then felt very curious about whether it was really all done by the king and what things were thought to have happened to Todoroki-sensei actually. Then he thought that if it really happened, then this was all a really scary thing. Then after hearing all the news, there was one student who looked very sad and told friends if the teacher said that Todoroki-sensei could not be contacted. The student named Shiroi became very afraid if it turned out that Todoroki-sensei had died. And according to her, if it really happened, then it meant that he had really done something very wrong. After Shiroi said that suddenly, simultaneously, her classmates immediately looked at Shiroi with a very sharp and scary look, so that it immediately made Shiroi tell them all that what he had just said about the king was just a joke, because according to her, Todoroki-sensei was indeed a very annoying teacher. After hearing Shiroi say all those things, suddenly, Tagaki Mariko immediately approached Tsubasa and said that from now on, Arisa could not get close to Shiroi, because Shiroin would immediately get punishment from King. After going through all the events in his class today, then after school, Tsubasa immediately contacted Takeru and asked her to accompany her to come to Todoroki-sensei's house, because at this time Tsubasa was feeling very disbelieving that Todoroki-sensei had really disappeared, so he did not come back to teach in Class 2B. Then when Tsubasa was in the middle of teaching the class, when Tsubasa was walking outside the middle school, suddenly, Shiroi approached her and asked about why he was not currently with Tagaki Mariko, and then told Tsubasa that surely Arisa was very happy because she would be picked up by her boyfriend. After saying that, then Shiroi also told Tsubasa that at this time he had received a card stating that he was a traitor. After seeing the card, Tsubasa immediately remembered that before finally making a suicide attempt, before Arisa also received a letter stating that Arisa was a traitor. Then immediately seen friends in the second class B lined up on the stairs and sang a farewell song to Shiroi so that it made Shiroi look crying, and then told them all to stop the song. Then after that, Tsubasa also helped Shiroi to stop their classmates from singing the farewell again, so that finally they all ran to return to class and no longer sang the farewell song to Shiroi. That immediately made Tsubasa rush to run and say that he had now begun to know the secret that happened between them, and then said that he would definitely find someone who had sent the card and eliminated Todoroki-sensei. Then Arisa also said that he would quickly find out who the real king was, but after hearing Tsubasa say that suddenly Manabe was seen carrying a wood and then hit her and said that Tsubasa would soon get punishment from the king. After getting a blow from Manabe, Tsubasa was immediately unconscious and was taken by Midori-kun to the UKS to get treatment to regain consciousness immediately. While still unconscious, Tsubasa wondered if it was because of the letter given by King to her that finally made Arisa become suicidal. Then, after some time unconscious, Tsubasa finally woke up from sleep, and in front of her stood Midori-kun, who accompanied her while in the infirmary room. It immediately made Tsubasa very surprised to see the presence of Midori-kun, who was right in front of her when he opened his eyes and asked about where he was at this time. Hearing this question made Midori-kun immediately explain to Tsubasa, who was pretending to be Arisa, that earlier he found Tsubasa fainting on the stairs, so he immediately took her to the UKS. After hearing that, Tsubasa immediately asked Midori-kun about whether the one who was dealing with her was Manabe-kun, and then Tsubasa also asked Midori-kun about who exactly the king who had been referred to by friends in the class. Then Midori-kun immediately took Tsubasa home while explaining what King Time was to Tsubasa. He then told Tsubasa that actually King Time used to be just an ordinary website, but it was very interesting like other sites, so that friends in the class could post anytime whatever they wanted. But then, one day, there was a post from someone on the site who mentioned that he was a king who could solve any problem experienced by any student in Class 2B. Then seeing the post, the student said that it was a very impossible thing, but then suddenly, Mariko posted that she really wanted to get a very good score on the test she was going to take, and then Mariko's post then got an answer, namely sending details about the questions that would come out during the test. So because of that, the beginning of the King Time event, where all students in Class 2B began to write down their wishes, even though not all requests would be granted because the king could only grant one request. Because of that, all students tried to make their requests come true, and to write down these requests, they ended up looking at their cell phones during math class. But after some time passed, the students in Class 2B began to feel that they could not let it continue because it would be very dangerous if one day their teacher found out that during class time they were all playing their respective cell phones. Finally, the students in Class 2B also found a solution to determine the right time to write down their requests and commit to each other not to feel disappointed if their requests were not granted. Because of this, they then made the fourth study hour on Friday a time for them to study alone, which they called King Time, so that since then all of them in Class 2B became friends who kept their secrets from each other. Then after the secret about King Time, from then on everyone who betrayed and who did not keep their secrets would immediately get punishment from the king. Besides that, with a very serious look on his face, Midori-kun told Tsubasa, who was considered by her as Arisa, that King really exists and can easily eliminate everyone who wants to be eliminated by her. In addition, Midori-kun also told Tsubasa that not a single request from students in the selected class was not granted by the king, so that friends in Class 2B considered the king as their god. This is because, according to them, the king has done something extraordinary, because it can grant the requests of the selected students and has unlimited power. After hearing the statement conveyed by Midori-kun, Tsubasa immediately said that they should not all just believe in everything that the king told them.